Hello, welcome to DIY with Wayne. Today we're out here in our yard. We're going to do a review of this Portland electric pole saw. It is a chainsaw on a long pole. It is corded, so you have to have a drop cord to operate it. It is not battery operated. We looked at the battery operated ones, but they're significantly more expensive. This is a lot more economical for the homeowner that's not going to use it very often. This is not professional grade, but I think it would work for a homeowner that just occasionally has a limb here and there that needs to be trimmed. But anyway, let's move forward. Let's open the box, get it out, talk about the features, and then demonstrate using it. At the end of the video, I'll give you my final review. Now at this point, we got everything out of the box. Obviously, this is the box. This is the pole saw. Obviously, this is the motor in. It is self-oiling. I like that. One negative that I've already got about this setup is it does not include oil for the automatic oiling of the chain. I think they should include at least a small bottle, a starter bottle of oil for the chain. Because if you buy this, you go home, you got a drop cord, but you don't have oil for the chain, you still can't use the device. So that's a negative. Like I said, it does run with a drop cord, so there's the end for the power cord. Got your trigger over here with a trigger lock. Comes with an instruction booklet. I always recommend people read the instructions. Most of it's going to be stuff you already know and duh kind of stuff, but it's always a good idea to read through there anyway, just for your safety, because you may read something that you didn't even know to ask about. So we do recommend that. This is the bar that comes with it. Actually, it's got a number on there that says 91. I thought that was length, but it's not 91 inches long, so I'm not sure what the 91 stands for. But it is made by Oregon, so it should be a pretty good quality bar. But we'll be installing this here in just a little bit. Plastic cover to cover the chain, the chain that's on the bar when you're not using the device. A little tool that's an Allen wrench and a screwdriver. Should be everything you need for adjusting and installing and removing the chain. And then the chain comes in this bag. It's made by Oregon, which is a good brand name. I like that. That's a plus. So anyway, that's what comes in the box. Now let's start putting the parts together and get this thing fired up. Now the first thing we're going to do is install the chain. But you take the tool that came with the saw, put it in here, and that's the bolt that loosens up the cover that goes over where the chain is installed. So you take that nut out, this cover comes off, it just lifts off, and that's all there is to it. Now here, I want to talk about what's here for a moment. This is the drive shaft coming off the motor that actually drives the chain. This up here is where your oil comes through to oil the chain. Anytime you take this apart, make sure this area up in here is clean. If you get crud in there, it can get stopped up and it can cause problems where it doesn't oil the chain properly. The center hole is just where this bolt goes in. These long pieces here fit in this long shaft of your bar. Okay, like that. And one thing that's important, that pin right there has got to go in one of these holes. When I first got it, the pin was over there. The screw was screwed all the way in. You got to back this screw out, so this will be back down here somewhere. And then your bar goes on like that. But before we start that, I'm going to take and put the chain on the bar. So let me get this in here, in the groove. It's wanting to be a little bit aggravating, but that's just normal for chainsaw stuff. Okay, now when you put your chain on, these teeth, if you see how the direction of the tooth is, the bottom tooth needs to be like this, where when it goes, it moves this away. The tooth moves this away as the chain runs. That's the cutting edge right there. So it cuts as the chain goes this way. If you turn it the wrong way, it won't cut. So you put the back end of the chain around that shaft for the coming off the motor. This pin goes in that hole, that shaft goes in there. And then with all that in position, you put your cover back on, get your bolt, screw it in. Now one thing that they should have designed differently is this screwdriver part. If it was just a little bit narrower, you could put it in there and turn that bolt, but you can't do that. So just do this and tighten it up. And don't tighten it tight because you still got to adjust your chain. See how loose that is? That's not good. So the way you adjust it, and this is kind of upside down, but you know, there's an adjusting screw right there. If you screw it clockwise, that will adjust your chain tighter. Okay, as you turn the chain, you can see it's a little bit tighter now than it was. I'm going to turn this over so maybe you can see it a little bit better. But as I turn that, you can see the chain tightening up some. You really should do this with gloves on because those teeth are pretty sharp. Alright, there we go. Now that's still too loose. To get your chain adjusted properly, you should not be able to see the end of the teeth right there when you pull down on the chain. That's too loose. So I'm going to tighten it up a little bit more. See, when I pull it down, I can see a little bit of the tooth. Because this chain is new, I'm going to tighten it up a little bit tighter than I might normally would. That's a little too tight. Back off just a little bit. I want to be able to pull. Now, I'm not pulling really hard, but see how I pull that? I can see the teeth in there a little bit, but not much. The thing that'll happen to you with a brand new chain is when you start using it, a little bit of wear, it will get loose on you. So when you start running the saw, occasionally take a look at your chain, pull up on it, top or bottom, doesn't matter. And if you can see the bottom of those teeth that go in the bar is too loose. If it gets too loose, you'll have trouble with your chain coming off. So that's how you install the chain. Once you get the tension like you want it, turn back over, tighten your bolt down a little bit better. Now don't try to tighten this real tight because you do have plastic parts here, and they can't take being tightened real tight. So just be careful that you don't tighten it too tight. Now on the top, we've got the oil for the automatic oiler. Take your cap off. You take your sticker off of there that they put on there just to tell you to make sure you put oil in it. Now there's a lot of different oils you can use. I prefer a regular chainsaw oil, but the manual says you can use just plain 30 weight oil. So that's what I'm using here today. You got to be real careful because that hole is small. Just pour your oil in there. And it doesn't hold much, so it fills up pretty quick, obviously. See if I can put a little bit more in there. Alright, I'm going to get a rag and dry that off and put the cap on there. But 30 weight motor oil will work. If you get oil made for a chainsaw, it will be stickier and it doesn't come off your chain as well. But either one will work just fine. Now I noticed when I was filling up the cap, as I was pouring oil in, it was not letting air out well. So I had a little bit of trouble getting it completely full. But this scale right here will tell you how full the reservoir is. And as you're using the chainsaw, check that occasionally because if you run out of oil, your chain will get a lot of unnecessary wear and shorten the life of the chain. Now the next thing coming down the pole, you got this part right here, and that's how you adjust the bar or the length of the pole. The pole will extend out to 8 feet 10 inches, and to extend it, this part right here, you just loosen a little bit, it extends out, you turn it back and tighten it down and it will stay there. So that's how you adjust the length. Now for demonstration purposes, I'm going to put it back in. Now at the handle, the only thing you got is the trigger you pull right here and a little button. In my case, I'm right-handed, so I mash the button with my right thumb, pull the trigger, and the saw will run. You do have to have a drop cord to operate it. And if you take your drop cord and do a half twist around it, and then plug it in, your cord won't come unplugged as easily. So anyway, with it plugged in, take my right thumb, mash the button in, take my fingers and pull the trigger, and it runs. So now let's cut a limb. Just cut it right along here. Cuts pretty good. Now this is a dogwood tree that I need to trim some, and just as a reference, dogwood is one of the harder woods that you can cut. It's, it's in the same hardness range as oak and hickory. So this is a good example of something that's hard to cut. No problem. Okay, you can see there that dogwood limb that I cut last. It's just a little over 5 inches in diameter. That'll give you an idea of how fast it cuts something that size. And now for my final review. I do like this tool. I think it's a good value for a homeowner that's going to use something occasionally. I like the cover for the chain when you're not using it. That's nice to have because those chains can be damaged if you bump them against things. I like that it has an automatic oiler. Some saws don't have that, most do, but it's always nice to have that. I like the little scales on the back side. You can't see it, but I like the little scale that'll show you how much oil is in the reservoir. That's always a nice feature. Installing the chain was not difficult at all. Adjusting it was not difficult. But like I said, when I was showing you about adjusting the chain, just make sure that as you use it, you check the tension on the chain often, because if it gets loose, it will jump off, and that's a pain to fix sometimes. Fixable, it's not going to usually tear things up, but it's aggravating, it costs you time. So as far as the power unit, the head of it, I like everything pretty much. The oil reservoir pouring oil in, you had to pour really slow, or it didn't, the oil going in would block the air coming out, but that's a minor thing, but not a big deal. The adjustment for adjusting the length of it seems to work really well. The only thing there is if and I said earlier, this thing extends out to 8 feet 10 inches or something like that. If you want one that extends longer, one thing I would caution you about, and I was speaking to my neighbor just a little while ago, he's got another one, it's a different brand name, but it'll extend out, he said, to about 20 feet. But when you get it all the way extended out, it's so heavy at this end, he says you can't control it. He said it's almost unusable when it's all the way extended out. So think about that as well. If you get one that extends long ways, they're just almost uncontrollable. This right in here is padded. I like the padding on the arm of the bar. The handle back here is designed for a right-handed person. I wish it was ambidextrous. I consider that a little bit of a negative, but it's very user-friendly for a right-handed person. The drop cord. If you use a drop cord of any length, there is a scale in the owner's manual that will tell you what is safe for what length of drop cord as far as the size and capacity of the drop cord. So if you're going more than maybe 50 feet, you might want to consult that scale in the owner's manual for how heavy a drop cord you need for what length. So all in all, I like this tool. I would recommend it for a homeowner that doesn't have much to cut, but needs something like this to cut things occasionally. So anyway, that's my recommendation. Like I said earlier, we got this at Harbor Freight. I think I got it, I think regular price is around $60 or something. Don't quote me on that, because with their sales, it can vary a lot sometimes. But anyway, at its price point, I think it's a good value for the homeowner that would just use it occasionally. So anyway, that's our review of this Portland pole saw. I'd just like to say thank you for visiting Do It Yourself with Wayne, and we hope you have a great day.